What's the good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. We officially have our first general manager candidate interviewed, and it's Thomas Dimitroff. I'm so excited, not only just to hear this name, but to kind of get familiar with the background a little bit, because I was starting to get worried when we had the rumors of the names like Louis Riddick coming out, who hasn't been in a front office setting in over 10 plus years. And again, a lot of that just came back to, are these guys actually meeting criteria that has been selected by the New York Jets? Or are we just interviewing people for the sake of interviewing people? Although for what it's worth, one of you mentioned interviewing them and being able to gather some data, for example, just about ideas, concepts, and any, maybe erroneous thoughts that may be out there would also be helpful to continue to eliminate guys moving forward, or possibly promote even some further candidates that we may not be considering. But Thomas Dimitroff, former general manager for the Atlanta Falcons, and he did a lot of good during his tenure there. I think he was there from about 2008, I want to say, to 2020. NFL personnel member for over 30 years, though. Worked his way up from a scout all the way up to being a general manager. In fact, he was named NFL Executive of the Year twice, which is a huge feat, right? You think about most of the times the guys have earned these accolades, the season that they've had generally has gone very favorable, right? You're talking deep playoff runs, you're talking elite regular season performances. So to pull that off twice over the span of his 12, 13 years or so as being a GM is pretty huge. Super Bowl team that he helped build by 2016 over that span of time that he had. This is a guy that has a pretty interesting background, not only just as a talent evaluator, but as a acquisition artist, right? You're also talking about the guy that not only picked up Matt Ryan, but Julio Jones probably being the biggest acquisition of his tenure during his time there. What has he been doing since? He's created a football analytics company called Sumer Sports, and he's the CEO over that company. So if he somehow finds a way to become the next general manager of the New York Jets, you can pretty much write it in stone that there's going to be a heavy emphasis on utilizing analytics to support a lot of the decisions that we're making. And I'm definitely on board with analytics, right? I think there's a time and a place to utilize some of those things for sure. But I think about guys like Dan Shamash that are currently employed with the New York Jets, who's our situational football awareness / lead data analyst. At least during when Robert Saleh was here, I know his role had changed a little bit more this year. But I love it, right? Again, I've kind of quoted elements of looking at teams like the Seattle Seahawks and how they created the Legion of Boom, for example. You look at the 49ers and some of the focal points of how they choose defensive linemen, for example. Even the Falcons during their tenure and their archetypes for linebackers, it could be a huge boost for a football team. It doesn't just stop with the Falcons with him either, which is what I think most people would love to see. If you have one general manager that's had tremendous success with one organization versus a GM that has been able to mostly figure it out with two, right? You would assume there's been a failed tenure with one, a second opportunity, and then he ends up succeeding in the second one. But when you see a guy that has excelled in multiple programs, nonetheless, it's a huge plus. We can't forget that he also helped the Patriots build 2 Super Bowl champion teams. And during that tenure, he was the director of college scouting for them. So one of the aspects that I'm going to fall in love with is a guy that knows how to build through the draft. Now, obviously, the Falcons' tenure didn't go well for him, or we probably still, we wouldn't be having this conversation here, right? So the negatives to Dimitroff is that during his tenure, he ended his last 3 seasons there consecutive losing seasons. But he did ultimately finish with a 113-94 record. So obviously the guy had the goods to mostly get it done, but it feels like in some of these situations, if you look at like a John Robinson, if you look at a Thomas Dimitroff, for example, you can make the argument that at some point, the central voice that's been in place there for a long time just needs to be replaced, right? And you can look at Bill Belichick, you can look at guys like Sean Payton, for example. You can even look at some of the arguments made from Mike Tomlin as some of those situations where, yes, they're excellent coaches, but for that setting, that time period, everything they've contributed, it might be time to move on and kind of press reset. So Thomas Dimitroff, at least, is a name that I'm really, really excited for. I can dig a lot further if needed. But this is a name that really excites me. I can honestly see him being a potential finalist for the New York Jets after it's all said and done. I still love my names like Borgonzi that's out there. I still love Ray Agnew. But this is the kind of candidate that I was looking for in terms of guys that aren't currently in the league that you'd be able to go out there and try to get an advanced look on, right? So let me know what you guys ultimately think, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.